Earlier this week, I was sitting in the dining hall at Rotary Scout Reservation having lunch with Ed Colleen and Brian Murray. As we talked, the conversation naturally turned to the podcast. Ed made a simple observation that immediately caught my attention. He said, "One of the things I find most interesting about the podcast is that everyone seems to take away something different from camp." Before he had even finished the thought, Brian and I looked at each other and almost at the same time said, "That sounds like a podcast episode." The more I reflected on that conversation, the more I realized that Ed wasn't simply making an observation about the podcast. He was describing one of camp's greatest strengths. Every person who comes to camp experiences the same place, the same dining hall, the same campsites, the same lake, the same trails, the same campfires. And yet, every one of us goes home with a different story. Why is that? And what does that tell us not only about camp, but about scouting itself? That's what we're talking about today. Welcome to Meet Me at the Grizz, the podcast where we celebrate the people, traditions, and experiences that make Rotary Scout Reservation such a remarkable place. I'm Ken Clough, and whether you're driving to camp, remembering summers from years ago, or preparing for your very first week at Rotary Scout Reservation, I'm glad you're here. So pull up a chair around the campfire, and let's spend a few minutes together. One camp, many different experiences. One of the fascinating things about recording this podcast has been listening carefully to each guest tell their story. Every person has walked through the same camp. They have eaten in the same dining hall. They have watched flags in the parade field. They have walked down the same trails. They have stood around the same campfires. Yet when I ask them what camp means to them, I almost never hear the same answer twice. One person talks about friendships. Another remembers learning leadership. Someone else recalls their first summer away from home. Others remember a scoutmaster who believed in them before they believed in themselves. Some remember the excitement of earning merit badges. Some remember the challenge of the climbing tower. Others remember quiet mornings sitting by the lake before anyone else was awake. Every story is different, and every story is true. That tells me something important. Camp isn't one experience shared equally by everyone. Camp is thousands of experiences unfolding in the same place. It's almost like a mosaic. Each individual story is only one small piece. But when you put all of those stories together, you begin to understand what Rotary Scout Reservation really is. No single person experiences all of camp. Instead, every person experiences their own camp, and that's exactly the way it should be. Every camper's journey is different. When we arrive at camp, we don't all arrive as the same person. We bring different personalities, different strengths, different fears, different interests, different levels of confidence. Some scouts arrive excited, others are nervous. Some have been looking forward to camp for months. Others aren't entirely sure they even wanted to come. Adults are no different. Some leaders love teaching. Others simply enjoy watching young people grow. Volunteers come with different talents and different reasons for giving their time. Because we all arrive differently, it only makes sense that we all leave differently. For one scout, camp may be the place where they finally discover confidence. For another, it may be the week they realize they enjoy kayaking, archery, or leatherwork. A quiet scout may learn that leadership doesn't always require being the loudest person in the room. A homesick scout might discover that they're stronger than they ever imagined. Those lessons don't show up on a merit badge sash, but they often become the lessons that matter most. Adult leaders experience camp differently as well. Some discover patience. Some discover the joy of watching a young person succeed without needing to step in. Some realize that the scout who struggled all year suddenly comes alive at camp. Volunteers often rediscover why they fell in love with scouting decades earlier. Sometimes camp gives us exactly what we need, not because someone planned it that way, but because camp creates the opportunity for those moments to happen naturally. Years later, most people don't remember every requirement they completed. They remember how camp made them feel. They remember the people, the conversations, the laughter, the challenge, the feeling of belonging. Those are the things that stay with us. Why camp works so well. Why does camp have this effect on people? I think it's because camp isn't designed to create identical experiences. Instead, it's designed to create opportunities. Opportunities for adventure, opportunities for responsibility, opportunities for friendship, opportunities for leadership, and opportunities for discovery. Camp provides the setting. What each of us discovers within that setting is deeply personal. Think about a typical day at camp. 2 scouts may begin the morning together. One heads to environmental science. Another goes to rifle shooting. After lunch, one spends time practicing waterfront skills. The other joins friends for open climbing. That evening, they sit together at campfire. They shared the same day, yet they lived completely different experiences. Multiply that by an entire week. Multiply that by years in scouting, and then multiply that by generation of campers. Now it's easy to understand why every story sounds different. The program is shared. The meaning is personal. I think that's one of the great reasons camp has remained meaningful for so many generations. It doesn't force everyone into the same experience. Instead, it gives everyone room to discover their own. Why that matters. Once you begin looking at camp this way, it changes how we measure success. If you're a scout, don't compare your week to someone else's. Maybe your friend earned more merit badges. Maybe someone else climbed every mountain. Maybe another scout became senior patrol leader. That's their journey. Yours is different, and that's okay. Your success isn't measured against someone else's experience. It's measured by your own growth. If you're a parent, when your scout comes home, ask questions that go beyond advancement. Certainly ask about the merit badges. Those are important. But also ask, what was your favorite part of the week? What surprised you? What challenged you? Who did you meet? What made you laugh? What did you learn about yourself? Those answers often reveal the experiences that last far longer than the merit badges. And if you're a leader, remember that every scout in your troop is taking something different home. Success isn't simply checking requirements off a list. Sometimes the biggest success is helping a scout make their first friend, or watching someone overcome homesickness, seeing a quiet scout volunteer to lead, helping a young person discover confidence they didn't know they possessed. Those moments may never appear on advancement reports, but they're often the moments remembered decades later. Camp changes lives in so many different ways. Not all of them are measurable. Not all of them fit neatly into a handbook, but they're real and they matter. The scouting trail is different for everyone. The more I thought about Ed's observation, the more I realized he wasn't just describing camp. He was describing scouting itself. One of the greatest strengths of scouting is that every scout follows a different trail. Scouting has never been about creating identical young people. It has always been about helping young people become the best version of themselves. Every scout makes choices. They choose which merit badges interest them. They choose which leadership opportunities to pursue. They choose whether they enjoy hiking, pioneering, shooting sports, aquatics, conservation, or service. Two scouts can join the same troop on the very same day. Years later, they may have completely different stories. One becomes an Eagle Scout. Another discovers a lifelong love of camping. One develops leadership skills. Another finds confidence through community service. Neither story is more important. They're simply different. And that's how scouting was designed. Camp accelerates that journey. Instead of one troop meeting each week, scouts spend an entire week immersed in scouting. They make decisions every day. They solve problems. They meet scouts from other troops. They discover new interests. They experience independence. They practice leadership. They build friendships. They learn responsibilities. And in just 1 week, camp compresses months of scouting experiences into a remarkably short period of time. Growth happens faster. Friendships deepen more quickly. Confidence develops more rapidly. That's why so many people remember camp as one of the defining experiences of their scouting journey. Camp doesn't replace scouting, it intensifies it. It accelerates everything scouting is already trying to accomplish. And perhaps that's why so many of us return year after year. Not because every summer is identical, but because every summer offers something new. Every summer writes another chapter in our scouting story. Around the campfire. Let's go back to lunch in the dining hall. One simple observation. Everyone takes away something different from camp. The more I think about it, the more I believe Ed was exactly right. Not only about the podcast, but about camp, about scouting. Maybe that's why every conversation on this podcast has been unique. Every guest has described a different aspect of camp. Every story has been true. Every story has mattered. And together, those stories create something much larger than any one person's experience. They remind us that camp isn't defined by buildings, or merit badges, or even traditions. Camp is defined by what happens inside the people who spend time there. That's why no two stories are the same, because no two journeys are the same. So, I'd like to leave you with one question. What did you take away from camp? Not your favorite meal, although mine is pizza for lunch on Friday. Not your favorite merit badge. Not even your favorite campsite. Instead, what lesson? What friendship? What challenge? What quiet moment? What conversation has stayed with you over the years? Because if Ed was right, and I think he was, every answer will be different. And perhaps that's the greatest strength of Rotary Scout Reservation. Hundreds of scouts, leaders, volunteers, and families come to the same place every summer. They share the same traditions. They stand around the same campfires. They sing the same songs. But each leaves carrying something uniquely their own. And that may be one of the greatest gifts scouting has ever given us. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Meet Me at the Grizz. If today's conversation made you think about your own camp story, I'd love to hear from you. Share your memories on our Facebook or Instagram pages. Send me an email, or stop and say hello the next time you see me at the Grizz. Every story adds another piece to the remarkable story of Rotary Scout Reservation. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider following the podcast and leaving a review when you listen. Reviews help other scouts, scouters, alumni, and families discover Meet Me at the Grizz and become part of our growing campfire conversation. So, until next time, I'm Ken Clough, and I'll meet you at the Grizz.